Ultimate Spider-Man #3 has been one of ours and a lot of other people's favorite book.
Yeah, so far.
It comes out. And I'll tell you, I think that this issue, and you're going to get some issues. You can't have, balls to the wall, crazy things going. But some big things happen in this issue. But I feel like it's a little bit of a, I don't know, cool down, even though there's a huge fight. It's a weird way to play it. But I think that you have some things that I like that might surprise people compared to what I didn't like, because I always love a fashion show.
Oh, yeah.
And I think May is great. I think that she is so cute. And I worry right now that she's going to get killed. So with all of that, I'm really worried about it. Most people were going with the idea that, Mary Jane, call me when Mary Jane gets killed. Call me. I don't know. They're really setting up that personal deal, really wanting you to fall in love with May. I don't know why Peter's swinging around New York City with her hanging on his back. It seems very dangerous, but hey, he's new to it. But this is Ultimate Spider-Man #3, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Checchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, letters by VC's Corey Petit. Now, I love May. I don't think I trust this Richard. Don't like him. He's too much of a. First off, he's a mama's boy. He seems to be like a real know-it-all. Like the idea of, I read that in the book, and I like when Peter gets back. Well, I actually read this in a book, but Mary Jane looks good. She walks in, and the two, Richard and Mary Jane, think that May and Peter are up to something. And Peter is kind of funny. He's like, well, if you say something is quality father-daughter type, because they kind of just are sitting there, not looking at them. And it's kind of funny, but they're
going to buy shoes, and he doesn't want to go buy shoes.
Yeah, Richard and Mary Jane are leaving.
Kind of a weird setup.
He doesn't want to buy shoes. So he's like, I don't want to get the shoes. I think mine are fine. But that just ends up, and I like that the progression. The art's great when you end up, Mary Jane's like, all right, you guys have fun and don't do anything I wouldn't do. And they're just like saying nothing, smiling. And then it's Peter who's like, that's the best part of this.
He's a bad influence.
He's so excited. And it's a cool thing where being Spider-Man, it's kind of made him feel, you could tell before. Remember how depressed he seemed in that first issue, that people really didn't like it. You kind of forget it now, but it's like he's a little kid now because he's got the Spider-Man stuff. And I think it is a neat play that he does have May to have it. If he's just by himself, it's not as fun. He doesn't get to talk to anybody about it. And we're just going to get fashion show. And the fashion show's fine. I forgot things, and I wish they would have spelled it out with the tech that is the suit. I completely forgot. Now, I don't think, like, in my mind, it's silly for me to think if it's not that, what do I think? That they run off to the sewing machine? Obviously, they're not. But it was something that kind of threw me later.
It wasn't established because we thought it might have been a symbiotic type suit, but it's more of a tech-based Tony Stark suit.
Yeah, and we're going to find that more. And when it happens, it just threw me. It didn't ruin anything. I'm not saying I'm taking points off. I just wish at one point, maybe because May's just sitting there and Peter's changing through suits.
On the top of a roof in the broad daylight.
Yeah, in the broad
nonetheless.
daylight. Yeah. And with that, though, those goggles and her setup is so cute. It's so
scarf.
Cute, right? Now, in that, I know that people, fight back at her, but boy, I wish Gabby was around here and could hang out with them as well, because I think she'd be really cute, but she'd be a really bad influence. But you end up where all this going, she's just like, no, Dad, I don't like that suit. It's black and it looks scary. Okay, let's do this. And you're going to go through classics like, a Scarlet Spider suit and things. And even that, the big joke with that look is, man, Dad, you're so old. That's kind of a funny joke about that older thing.
The hoodie.
And then, the hoodie, it's great. And then he goes through, and then even a blue. She's like, we need a little more blue, full blue. And then she's like, no, not all blue. Boom, classic suit. And that's all this is. And it's supposed to have fun, and it's with May helping out. So you have them zipping around, but that's why she has the goggles. Because Peter, even though he's very new to this, and he's zipping around, he has this young daughter clinging on. She is kind of webbed to him.
He straps her on like a backpack.
It's kind of funny, like a backpack, but still, I don't know that you should be doing this, but they're having a good time. She's having a grand old time. Actually reminded me for some reason of Invincible, when you end up having that when they first get the powers and they're flying around. But when you go then, and then you have Uncle Ben and J. Jonah, and they have, a space that they've rented out. They have a back and forth. Again, a lot of people like the scene of them in the Turkish baths.
Yeah.
This is that same kind of slow down the pace deal I don't mind it as much because here, you had a goofy little beginning. It's cute. Then you get to this, but I do need more in these scenes than them just... The dialogue, I think, is great, back and forth, but it slows it down.
Well,
they don't get anywhere.
No, they don't.
Right?
They're leasing out a very expensive piece of real estate in Manhattan, I would imagine, with very little budget. But it's like, if you don't plan on hiring anybody and you're working, just work out of your basement. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Big.
Yeah.
I've
Put the
seen
cart
things.
before the horse, dude.
I'm sure everybody's seen that guy. It gets me annoyed, but the guy who goes around, hey, can I come and see your apartment? And you go in, the apartment's like the size of my closet in New York, and it's like, I pay $30,000 a month. I'm like, this is crazy.
It's huge.
Now, it is a wreck. I think they're trying to play the idea that it's a wreck. I actually thought this was going to be something where you pull out of here and like, oh my God, this is an old Oscorp building, or this is an old this or that. Like, we would know that, this would have been something, but because of the changes. But you don't. You just have this place. But it's back. We can't afford this. How will we have employees? Well, we won't have employees. Well, what does that mean? That means we save money. I'm like, all right. Peter shows up just to give a bonsai tree.
Those are expensive, by the way. They're about $100 at least.
Yeah. So comes in and says, at least this looks nice in the stump. But then sees their yarn and pin wall that I like to call something else in other podcasts. But they have this, and that these are them tracking the Green Goblin. And you have it mentioned. Also, they kind of use Peter as, hey, what's going on at the Bugle? Oh, they're doing this. Robbie's looking at that. And the big play is anything that is Green Goblin gets squashed. Green Goblin has been attacking Fisk. Fisk being in charge, they don't want that info out. Then Peter, because he doesn't want to be subtle at all, it's like, oh, I thought that you were, doing something with that real debonair, handsome-looking spider guy. Like, he's so over the top with it. Yeah. And even then, Ben and J. Jonah look at each other like, he's the spider guy. and the solicit for this issue was, you'll never guess who figures out the identity of Spider-Man. I'm like, maybe they do, because he's so over the top. They're
smart guys. They're journalists. They'll figure it out.
And he's like so over the top with it that it's crazy, but they just kind of look at each other and they move on. But he's looking at this whole deal as well. And you get that cool play where he's kind of a mole. He's getting some info from the Daily, Bugle, and then he's going to be able to tell them. They're figuring out some stuff, but they are trying to figure out why things are being squashed, what's going on with this goblin. But as I said, when Peter looks at this, he gets some info, that's fine. But J. Jonah and Ben, this is a slow burn story of what they're doing. I mean, I expect next issue you're going to go back to this and they're just going to be sweeping the floor talking about that. It's okay. Like I said, I do like the dialogue between them, but it does kind of get extended, and it does feel like it kind of pulls the pace down a bit. But then again, the pacing, you then end up where Peter, Spider-Man's just going to wait. He says he's going to stake out some things. He's eating some donuts. He's feeding the pigeons, which that's the worst thing. These pigeons will never leave him alone now.
You're going to be swarmed by them.
They're the worst. They're rats with wings. Stay away. So yeah, that. And also, I will tell you, one of my least favorite donuts is that pink icing.
The basic Homer Simpson donut?
Yeah, the Homer Simpson donut. I hate it. I can't stand it. I told everybody. I have my one buddy who, if you end up giving his dad any donut with a hole, he'll throw it right back at you and tell you got ripped off because you didn't get the whole donut. I'm like, really?
He basically likes cream filled.
He likes the cream, and that's the thing. If it's a full deal, you usually do get extra things with cream and stuff. But I hate that apple filled. That is my least favorite donut ever, and he liked those. With that though, Peter's waiting, and then he sees the goblin, but the goblin is in the middle of a fight with Bullseye. We get Bullseye in this deal. Doesn't seem any different. Seems fully Bullseye. He talks a lot of trash and a lot of, you think that I'm, taking orders from Fisk. I go above that. There's a secret deal, kind of opening up the world that we kind of know exists, but Peter and Goblin wouldn't. And so here is that play with solicits and things like that too, because even Uncle Ben and J. Jonah played around with that thing. Who's the bad guy? Fisk the bad guy? And is Goblin the good? Are they both good? Are they both bad? Nobody knows because of the way this is. But you kind of have heard, kind of feel, and especially after the end of this, that Goblin in this so far is a good guy trying to take out people. people, but they don't
it's interesting.
Know why.
You go with good guy, and we have every reason to believe that, but his name is Green Goblin. It's kind of like...
But the thing is, the weird play is he didn't come up with the name. I think they said Robbie came up with it, and he's just in that suit, which by the end seems like it was given to him maybe by Tony, just the way the spider was given.
Name.
It's odd, but he's going with it. I guess you have that idea of what it is without it, but if, Blue Beetle, Green Goblin, which is good or bad.
Yeah. Beetles are nice, I guess.
Then you have Bullseye. Who's one? Paul McCartney's pretty nice. Ringo's a good guy himself. John, kind of a jerk. But yeah, Bullseye's just Bullseye.
Oh, well, Bullseye has the Spider-Man mask on, too, which is
Bullseye
weird.
Also has like 80 million pouches.
Yeah.
So he's throwing his cards. One point, almost like a gambit play. They're electrified. And it just goes back and forth. He's just running and saying, yeah, you guys are ridiculous. You're not hunting me. I'm hunting you. And you just went into a trap. Then Green Goblin reverses it. And then Spider-Man jumps up. And then at one point, me and you both said, and it's a very topical deal, and it's a shame, but at the one point they're fighting, and you end up having Bullseye take down this big giant tower, and it looked like that bridge in Baltimore, and it actually made me wince. And it's not any fault of anybody, obviously. This was done before. Similar. But to have this come out now, and you see that, it's like, ooh, it like threw me. But yeah, so the end, pretty much, they take down the two of them. Goblin, and it's not exactly like they're well coordinated because they don't really know each other at this point, but you have distraction, and then finally Peter's able to kind of take Bullseye by surprise, and they end up having Goblin then take him down and pretty much grabs him, hauls him off, and sends him off with the glider.
That was interesting at how they hooked him onto that and just sent him off.
Again, the problem with that, and I think Hickman's playing with it, that it feels sus because Peter's there, and we don't know who the Goblin is just yet. We're going to find out in this issue. But the idea of Goblin saying, I can't send him to the police because Fisk owns the police. Plus, he says this guy, Bullseye guy, is a higher pay grade than that anyway. He even goes higher. He said it. So I'm sending him off to somewhere that I can make. And you're like, ooh, that doesn't seem good. But Peter wouldn't know. How would he know anything? He's there fighting with Goblin and thinks, and we already saw the idea of playing it up. He's so naive, Peter. We played it up so well last issue. So he's there and he's like, okay. But then that's where you end up where Goblin's like, hey, I'm going to see who you are, and presses a button in his deal and looks very much Stark-esque, even with his suit, and has that, glowing panel. And it does end up deactivating Peter's suit, and it starts to, dissipate around him. And there it is. He sees that he's Peter. Now, at that point, I don't know that he quite knows Peter, the way that they act. So maybe Peter could have went whoop, 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 and ran away. Mm-hmm. But maybe he couldn't because of this power down. But he actually then, because I thought the Goblin was going to see this and say, oh, okay. Like almost like that play of like, I have no idea who you are, but I got a picture and I'm getting out. I thought he was going to leave at this point, say, all right, we might think he has. But no, he undoes his helmet. It's Harry Osborn.
He introduces himself.
Yeah, he says, hey, I'm Harry. Now, when we had the memorial at the beginning of the series, it did seem that a lot of people knew Harry and who he was. Oh, that's Harry Osborn. His dad, Norman, died in the whole thing. Like, they seem to know him as a big to-do, but he wouldn't know Peter, I guess, the way this is playing. And it just plays out that they don't know each other. So Peter says, I'm Peter. And you don't know how this is going to play out until then Harry kind of smiles and says, you want to go out for a drink? We got a lot to talk about. This world's really messed up. And I like when he says that. He's like, the world's a strange and dangerous place these days. And Peter's like, yeah, I'm starting to notice that. I'm kind of starting to notice that. And yeah, he says, all right, let's go out to drink. But at one point they are kind of feeling each other out. Like there might be a fight.
Yeah, sizing each other up.
Yeah. And I mean, you look, they're pretty equaled out. That codpiece that, that Harry has might be, doing something that, but he says, you want to get a drink, maybe talk about it. And he's like, sure.
Do you give extra points or just subtract points for Harry's haircut not being the classic?
Yeah, I don't know. I like
so
the way
iconic.
He looks, but the idea of that is if you're going to have Ultimate Eddie, then you can't bring that haircut over. I mean, it's so bad.
I know.
Right? It'd be funny, later, he's like, I usually have cornrows, but I got yelled at for those. But, that hair is the worst. I like the way he looks. I like when they're standing up. But Peter with the beard, Harry with the not crazy road hair, it's a little different, but I do like it. And I like the art in this. I like the fight. Just things seem to extend a little too much. So by the end, it just felt like you had a big moment where Harry, Goblin, okay, we were wondering who it was. It didn't feel as big as what we were guessing before. Like people were saying, I think it's Uncle Ben. We're like, he's too plump. Not to fat shame Uncle Ben, but a lot of people thought it was J. Jonah. A lot of people this. And then when you find out it's Harry, you kind of just like, okay, it's Harry. Let's figure this out as we go. But it's still pretty big. But what would you give this?
Yeah, I mean, the arts, I like the art. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a different character design for Bullseye. He looks a little bit like a G.I. Joe character or something to me, but.
Like a Snake Eyes.
Yeah, Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow, one of those guys. So a little bit not as original as I would have liked to see here. But I like it still. I'd give this one, I'd give it an 8.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 7.5. I'm a little bit lower than you, only because it's one of those weird things. Usually I'm like, oh my God, we have this. And once we find out Harry's Goblin, yeah, that opens up things. But it kind of just is like, okay, well, what are we playing with now? What's the big thing? Obviously, the big thing is them trying to figure out what's messed up with this world and what's going on with Fisk. And this really does play into, now that I think of it, what Peter will tell and not tell Uncle Ben and J. Jonah, too, because they're trying to track down this goblin and thinking maybe he's bad or whatnot. So I don't know how this will play out. And it might end up where Peter is afraid if I do sell out, God, he knows who I am, too. So,
well, if he sells them out, Harry finds out, then they're enemies.
Yeah, then they're enemies.
Friends now until that happens. And it'll probably happen.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But with that, I'm a 7.5.